You ever have somebody that genuinely wants to help and then gives you absolutely garbage advice? And you kind of know better. Like, I should not listen to this person. But maybe because of social pressure or family pressure, you do, and it doesn't go well. Anybody? Hands raised?
No, never.
No,
Very wise and discerning.
never happened to
Well,
me.
that's part of it. I think you got to stay. How do you know it's bad advice? That you got to stay
I'll tell
connected.
You how. I'll tell you how.
Yeah, go
Courtney,
ahead.
Full price, Courtney. I'll tell you how. We're going to tell you right now on this here episode. We're getting into the best and the worst real estate advice that you've ever been given, that we've ever been given, and according to social media, some of our friends and clients have ever been given. So we're getting into it today, folks. And I got to be honest, I think there's a tremendous amount of bad advice out there. I would go so far as to say exponentially more bad advice than good advice. But there's some good advice out there as well. So what is the best and worst real estate advice you've ever been given? We're going to go around the horn here, as they say. And I'll give you some of mine over 20 plus years of doing this. And then we'll check with the socials. We'll check with our team and we'll let you know some things to avoid, but also maybe some things to look for when you're thinking about maybe buying or selling a house. Now, look, this is DFW Real Estate Weekly, and I am Todd Tremonti. So we're going to keep it as relevant to the Metroplex as we can. Some of these are more universal or more relational. They're more financial, but others of them are, some of them at least, are specific to this area. So as you're thinking about buying or selling a home, don't forget that is what we do all day, every day. We're here to help you, ToddTremontiTeam.com. But many of these, if not all of these, I'm going to say almost all of these have been tested on the streets of Dallas-Fort Worth as we help people buy and sell homes and avoid financial mistakes, avoid wasted time, avoid the pain of loss, and avoid missed opportunities. So these are not just here for humor's sake. This is not just storytelling hour. These are here to help you avoid big mistakes and to achieve your goals in real estate, most likely in DFW, but also anywhere in North America. If we can ever help you, just let us know, ToddTremontiTeam.com. Okay. Ian,
Yes.
I'm going to go to you first.
Okay.
What is the worst? No, we'll go best. We'll go positive first. What's the best real estate advice anyone's ever given you?
So this will be a personal little story, anecdote, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
When we sold our first house with you, we had redone a lot of things in the house. We redid the floors, we painted, we changed a lot of appliances, blah, 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 blah. The one thing that we didn't do was change the oven.
Yep.
And you came in and you said, hey, when people are going around looking at homes, they will oftentimes distinguish homes from one another by the negative, not necessarily the positive. And you don't want to be the old oven house.
Yep.
So take out the oven, you can go to like a scratch and dent place or whatever, and put in a better looking oven as opposed to the original 1982 oven that was in the house, because it just didn't fit with everything else. So to me, that was like some of the best advice. And I know that our agents have given that same advice to many, many, many clients over the years. And even when we meet every week with our team as we're getting ready to put homes live on the market, we're like, hey, let's make sure that this gets done and this gets done, because we don't want that to be the thing that stands out.
Yeah. Okay. Couple things.
Didn't know you were here today.
Courtney, you look like you had a brewing thought on Ian's thought. I think it's the same one I have, but I don't know for sure. Did you have any
No, I'm excited to see where this goes.
commentary on that?
No, I just think, I don't know. I was just thinking it's so sweet.
Were you? Yeah.
It's so sweet.
I knew that's where you were going. I'm more shocked, Courtney's like touched, that you were willing on the public airwaves to admit that the best advice you got was from me.
from Todd Tremonti.
I knew we were on the same page there. Listen, no. Just don't say
Let
anything.
it sit.
Don't say
Let it
anything.
lie.
Don't ruin the moment. Do not do it.
God.
Just know that neither of us ever thought you would be willing publicly to say that the best real estate advice you ever got was from me. Okay,
That
now
also shows how old it was because you were still wheeling and dealing. back
Oh,
then.
wow.
I was out on the streets, as they say.
People would kill to work with you now.
At that time, Courtney, it was the mean, and by mean I mean absolutely not mean, streets of Richardson, Texas.
Yeah.
Not where he lives anymore, and anyone who pays attention to this show knows exactly where he lives. Somewhere near the nature preserve. Okay, so
The BVIs.
let me say this. That's an inside joke, not to be explained today. Let me say this. I think you're making a great point, but I don't know if the point you're making is like generalized enough for most people to get it. So let me rephrase it, and you tell me if I'm getting this correctly. So like the really good advice that you're saying was really good for you that would apply to everybody is when you're thinking about selling your house, or maybe even just the way you present your house to visitors or your family, our instinct is to say, I want to show off all the positives or add positives. And the universal advice that you're talking about is step one is actually to remove the negatives.
Yes.
So whether we like it or not, and this is what I always explain to our clients and our team, and now our team explains to clients, is that's not how the human brain works. That's not how human emotion works. There's a tremendous amount of research. We don't need to quote it today, but human behavioral science, human behavioral psychology would say the vast majority of us work from the negative to the positive. So if they had gone in that house, they would have seen the new floors and the new paint and all that. But the thing that would have stuck with them was, man, a couple of those appliances were really old. And then they would have overvalued in their mind the cost of remedying that. And they would have,
One other thing I'll add really quickly too was this was before I ever worked here, right? So Todd was my realtor when I had a completely different job, and like that was the advice that we got. So that's not Ian saying it because he's on the team. It's Ian saying it because Todd was my realtor.
and if
sold the house.
if we had time to dig into it, you were a bit skeptical about us being your realtor, which is an even more interesting story of how you ended up seeing the value and making that choice and then seeing that it was worth the choice. Okay, very cool. Robert gave us one that he wants us to share. He's our marketing director, and he said, basically, if the economy or market tanks, would you rather still be in the house you're currently in or the next home that you've wanted to be in?
Dang.
And his I guess his point was a lot of the advice that people get has nothing to do with what you want. It's all about like, don't make the wrong choice. You got to make the right choice. And he's saying like, hey, things are always changing. If they got worse, would you have wanted to do the thing you already wanted to do? Or would you be glad that you were still waiting?
So I hear you saying, like, stretch yourself a little bit, go for broke, which is interesting because that's not been my experience. Like, I've kind of been like, oh, let's just do the next house.
Yeah. So
let's do the next house.
His summary of that
and
was,
I do regret that.
don't wait for an ideal market.
Yeah.
Was the advice, the good advice that he was boiling that down to. So there is no ideal market. There just isn't. We tell people all the time, are you waiting for prices to come down? Yes. What do you think will have to happen in the economy and in the world for prices to come down? Oh. Then it's like, well, I want lower prices. I don't want economic collapse. I want lower interest rates. I don't want runaway unemployment and inflation. So, with this comes that. Have there been, in my 23 plus years of doing this, have there been some seasons where it felt like, man, almost all these things are good? Yeah. But usually those were the times where prices were just up. And that isn't ideal for a buyer. So there's always trade-offs. And what Robert was saying is some of the best advice he's been given is don't wait for the ideal market. Now, he's also not saying just do whatever the heck you want, which is kind of your point of like, I've always tried to be really cautious and limit the downside. But what he is saying is if things got really bad, would you want to ride that out in the house with the extra bedroom, in the better school district, with the bigger lot, or where you are, where you're already not happy and now the conditions around you are less happy? So basically he's saying once you and your family and your finances are ready, go ahead and pursue that thing that you really want. Don't do it just because you want it if you can't afford it, if you're not ready. But if you are ready and you can afford it, go ahead and do it and weather out all, ride out all that change in the environment that you're happier and healthier in. Okay, let's get to some of the really bad advice. And this is just the way it is. There's way more bad advice out there. I'm going to give you the advice that I think is bad, and I'm going to pause for a second just to let our listeners and our viewers take it in. This is bad advice. Location, location, location is the most important thing in real estate. I'll repeat it in reverse. The most important thing in real estate is location, location, location.
Well, tell me why not.
And I believe that's bad advice. Now, I'm not saying it is always bad advice. I'm saying it is a bad idea to assume that is always true.
Well, I feel like I've heard it's the only thing you can't change.
I just want to congratulate you because you said you were going to let it sit, and you let it sit for a solid second.
I said it 2 times, and I let it sit for at least 2 seconds. So here's the point. It can change. You ready for this, Courtney?
Yep.
100 years ago, what was Wiley, Texas like? This show is brought to you by the Todd Tremonti Home Selling Team, where we guarantee to sell your home over the average price and under the average time. We also guarantee to help you buy a home and save at least $5,000 throughout the purchase process. Check out over 800 5-star reviews on Google. We'll get back to the show.
A farm.
It was a ton of ranch land and farmland. It was the way beyond the edge of anything. And what is it now? It is busier and more full, and
Primo.
There's some master plan communities, and the location changed. Now, it didn't move on the earth. The address is the address, but the environment changed. Let me ask you this. 150 years ago, what was South Dallas like? It was a community of smaller homes, little bungalows near the city that were almost all full of people making a good wage, living or working in or near the city, right? A lot of transit on the river, all kinds of stuff. Trinity, by the way.
Do you remember seeing the image of Dallas from
I
like
love them.
1900 or 1910
I
and
love
then
the
Dallas
aerial.
today? And it was that, the two side-by-side aerial images, and it's like, I mean, it's night and day.
I love the aerial image. I love the SketchUps from like the city planners in the 1880s and all that stuff. And by the way, I'm not making any unique commentary on South Dallas today, but it's not the same. It's not thought of the same. Home values aren't the same. The condition of the properties aren't the same. Location, location, location changed. You know what I mean? The environment around the property changed. The value of the home changed. The neighborhood changes. The school district changes. The economy changes, all that kind of stuff. So that's not me saying that's always wrong. That's me saying that is not always right. So if your attitude is all that matters is the location, I think that's bad advice.
How many people do we speak to every week where they call us and they're like, "Hey, I want to sell my house and want to move. What's the reason?" We don't say that bluntly, but we get to the why, and it's like, well, I moved here thinking it was gonna be nice and quiet, and it was quiet for the first 2 years, and then everything. New roads got built and things got built, and now it's just as busy as it was.
Yeah, and by the way,
in
the opposite can happen. I bought a townhome in Uptown because everything was walkable, and it's just gotten so busy and crazy and congested you can't get anywhere, and all my favorite restaurants left, and I'm out of here. So no matter where you are, things can change. The school district can change. The tax rate can change. Things change about your location. So I'm going to say it one more time because I know there's going to be critics. Location is very important. It matters where you live, but it is not the only thing. And aspects of your location can change, and they can make it less desirable, less valuable, less of what you originally wanted. Okay, Ian, worst advice you've ever been given?
This is one that isn't specific to what I was given, but is one that I've heard recently.
Okay.
And it was to do with somebody that was looking at selling their home, and the advice that they were given was here's 3 levels from 3 different levels of comps.
Mm-hmm.
Take your pick.
Okay, I'll expand on that.
Basically saying, what do you want to list the house at?
I'll expand on that because the only time I ever had a broker was when I was very, very new in my career, and I was at like a very low fee broker that they didn't promise to teach me anything, and they never taught me anything. They did exactly what they promised. It was just a poor choice on my side. But their deal was the only thing that I was really trained on there was how to run comps, comparables. competitive market analysis, comparable market analysis, whatever people call it. Basically, you find 3 properties that are similar, ideally square footage, location, lot size, house size, that kind of thing. You run the math on how much those homes sold for in the last 6 months. And then you average those 3, and that's the price per square foot that you multiply times the square footage of the house you're selling, and that's what it should sell for.
Yeah.
That's terrible advice, by the way.
Well, and the wider, even bigger issue that I hear often is, well, my agent never showed me anything.
Yeah.
They just said, "Hey, what would you like to get out of your house?" Oh yeah, I think I can make that work.
Yeah, but and we could spin that off to a second type of bad advice, which is like, it's up to you what you sell your house for. But the other one is your house is worth what the comps say they're worth. Correct. That's bad advice. Or the way you choose your sales price is solely based on comps. By the way, I'm not saying you don't go do that comparative analysis. I'm saying that is utterly insufficient. It's terrible advice that is the sole or even high primary way that you price your home.
Can I say one thing really quickly? Yep. When we were putting together this show, it was amazing how quickly we could think of all the negative things that people have been told. Yeah. A lot harder than finding all the positive things that people have been told over their years.
Now, we keep giving a caveat every time, though. Sometimes the good advice can be bad and the bad advice can be good. So just for a quick pause, you need guidance. You need customization. You need somebody you need to understand your timing, your situation, your family, your finances, your current market conditions that are unique to you. And so this is where obviously our belief is that you need a professional to lead and guide and advocate you through the process. They need to be full-time. They need to not be working alone. They need to have the tools, the technology, the people, the experience, the expertise to help you make the best choices for you. That's what we do all day, every day at the Todd Tramonte Home Selling Team. You can just go to toddtramonteteam.com to find us. But if it's not us or you're in some other part of the world, it's got to be somebody that can help you navigate when the good advice is bad for you, when the bad advice might be good for you, or when you need some advice that is not stereotypical and common and out there being discussed all the time. Another one that came up for us on our team was somebody was told that just flipping is dangerous, period. The advice they got is don't flip houses. Now, I can tell you 8 versions of that, right? Flipping doesn't work. This is a bad market for flipping. Flipping is bad because of the taxes. Flipping's only good for the seller. Flipping's only good for the buyer. Flipping only works in a buyer's market. Flipping only works in a seller's market. All this terrible advice around flipping. By the way, some of those things are true. They're just not always true. So I would say you need to be cautious about flipping. I would definitely say flipping is almost never as easy as it looks on television, but it can be great. I say flip for cash and hold for cash flow. There's a lot of different ways to flip. You can quick flip. You can slow flip. I wrote a whole book on slow flipping called The 2-Year Flip.
Backflip.
You could do a backflip.
Flip flops.
Yeah, flip flops. You could also do slow holds and long holds, quick holds and long holds, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, and all sorts of things in between. So all that to say, just that off-the-cuff little one-liner advice is almost always going to be bad for you. But the flipping is dangerous advice. A lot of that came out of the 2008 financial crisis, where a lot of the damage in the financial environment was blamed on investors, was blamed on taking advantage of mortgage rules to have a bunch of mortgages and flip houses, and the banks were the bad guys for foreclosing and all this, and nobody was really being held responsible to actually make wise financial decisions for themselves. I'm not saying the banks didn't deserve some of the blame, and I'm not saying there isn't bad investors out there, but as a general rule, blanket statement, flipping is not necessarily bad. Flipping isn't always dangerous, but some caution is wise in all things. Really, discernment is wise in all things. So, Courtney, we're bouncing around a bunch of good advice, bad advice. What the heck do our friends, family, and neighbors who are watching and listening, what's the point? Where's the value in this for them? Where is there any application whatsoever?
Well, that there are lots of people giving lots of advice. Bad advice. Everybody thinks they know what's up and what you should do with your life. And the truth is that you need a trusted expert. You need someone who knows the market, cares about you, and has your best interest solely in mind.
If I needed medical help, I could just go to WebMD though.
Totally.
I have
Google it.
I have a friend that used to be a nurse.
Yeah.
I have a buddy that is like a vet, but generally knows.
Yeah, we're getting
health
lots
stuff.
of advice on the socials, quick sound bites and whatever. And I just like the older I get, the more I want to dig in on my specific situation and have it in my specific place in life with my details.
I think the point you're making, which I'm glad you did because this was not in any way planned, is you say the older you get. It's like the more times I get some things right and get some things wrong, the more I realize that everyone's situation is just different.
Yeah.
And by the way, my situation's different than my situation was last time or last year or last month. So getting good advice or guidance or expertise or advocacy or representation comes down to someone who can understand your situation. That's not a one size fits all. That's not a who's got the coolest logo. That's you finding someone that will listen, finding someone that will ask great questions, that will be consultative, that can customize, that doesn't have this like all things are done one way or I have no way. I just try to be helpful and don't have systems and resources and tools and technology and people. So most of our time is spent on the Todd Tremonti home selling team, helping people buy and sell homes, helping people prepare, whether they're a month out or a decade out. We really do feel called, gifted, on mission to use our gifts and abilities to serve you. Our God-given gifts and abilities to listen, to understand, to customize, to use the tools and resources and technology and work together as a team to increase the value for you to sell, to diminish the time and burden when you go buy, to make it very seamless when you do both. And of course, if you do want to invest or do some of the things we talked about today to help protect you from some of the biggest mistakes, but to understand your situation, your family, your finances, your timeline, so that we can lead and guide and advocate for you to do those things well. So check us out, toddtremontiteam.com. And then let us know if you're catching this on the YouTube's, comment below. If you're catching the podcast and this was valuable, shoot it out to somebody else or subscribe or leave us a review. All that lets us know that you want more of one thing or less of something else, and that we're doing a good job or that this has been helpful to you. But if we can help you, if we can earn your business, if we can add some value in your life, all that starts at toddtremontiteam.com or just Google my name, spell it as best you can. You'll find us someplace. We'll help you however you would like us to help you. Until then, for the Yanni Donnie, the English wonder himself, and for the Triple C full price Courtney and Christian back in El Studio, I'm Todd Tremonti, and we'll talk to you on the next one.